Welcome to The Conscious Creative from MuseWorks Audio. The Conscious Creative is a podcast featuring interviews with artists who are doing transformational work in their craft and in their communities. Join us as we discuss different artistic philosophies, give you brand new tools to bring back to your creative spaces, and build a community of artists dedicated to deepening their relationship with their craft. I'm your host, Mike Irish. Thank you for joining us.
Bree Noble quit her corporate job as a director of finance at a U.S. top 15 opera company to pursue music. Besides allowing her to use her God-given vocal and songwriting talent, this career shift enabled her to spend more time with her two young daughters. Bree had a successful 7-year run as a touring singer and songwriter, including 3 album releases and several songwriting and artist awards. Bree has created a large, enthusiastic following of female musicians over the years. She made the community official when she opened the female indie musician community on Facebook in July 2016. The group has now amassed over 4,000 engaged members. Bree and I sat down to talk about her corporate career as a DFO, and we also spoke about what pushed her to quit her corporate job, as well as mixing music and business and spirituality, how you can make those things work together as opposed to working against one another. We also talked about the importance of women in professional music, and we got into a few more specifics as well about music business and what she offers in terms of an educator. So I hope that you enjoy this. I really enjoyed chatting with Bree. I think she's doing some really important and really great work. So without further ado, here's the interview with Bree Noble. So welcome, Bree Noble, to The Conscious Creative. I'm really, really grateful to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I think you have a really interesting story, and I've been friends with a few people who've sort of been in the corporate world, and then came into the artist world. And my one really close friend, Covey, who did something similar. He had a very significant moment, leaving his corporate job to become an artist. And I was wondering if did you have a significant moment that sort of pushed you over the edge, or was it sort of a gradual thing that you worked your way towards?
I actually did. So, I mean, I had been trying to do music in the background and on the side the whole time that I was in my corporate job. And like, just to explain, like my corporate job was actually in music, but it was at an opera company. So I got to work around creatives, which was awesome. But I was the director of finance, so I wasn't doing anything creative, but I got to hang out with artists and go watch operas and go to parties and stuff like that, which was really fun. But I wasn't doing anything that was like artistically fulfilling for me. But what happened to me is that it was a very high stress job because I was a director of finance for an arts organization, which if you've ever worked in an arts organization, you know that they never have enough money. And it is just like artists where it's like feast or famine. You know, when we're selling our annual subscriptions, suddenly we have millions of dollars. And then in the summer, when we're not selling anything, but we still have all of our operating expenses, we're like scrounging around to make payroll. So it was a very stressful job. And although I loved it, it really did like take a toll on my health. And when I was 30, I'd been working there for, I think, 3 years by then. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I mean, I have the genetic markers, it's in my family, but the stress like pushed me over the edge. And so I had just had a baby, and then within 7 months, with the stress of the job and the, having a baby and all that on top of these genetic markers, it like sent it into overdrive. And I ended up in the hospital and had to get on IV steroids and all this stuff. And so That was really what pushed me over the edge because I didn't I didn't see how I could keep that lifestyle going. And I still really, really wanted to do music, and I also had a baby, and so I'm like, I have to choose only two of these things. I can't do all of them. And so I figured out a way to exit myself from corporate and stay home with my daughter, but that gave me the time to start working more on my music career.
Yeah, yeah. Did you do you feel like it was sort of because you went through somewhat of a traumatic experience that you sort of saw what was really valuable to you, and or was it, yeah, did you sort of feel like you had to make priorities and you saw what was truly valuable to you?
I did. I did. And I think having a 1 year old or less than 1 year old at that time really also just brought it into more sharper focus. I don't know, would that have been enough to have me leave that job at that moment if I didn't have a 6 month old? I don't know. But I was at the point where I knew that the stress of that job wasn't going to change. In fact, it never did. Like I ended up working there part time. I found somebody to take my position, and I ended up working there part time from home for the rest of the years that the opera existed, which was another 4 years. And it never got better. Like it would have just always been that stress of the money. And then in 2008, they folded because of the economy. So, I lucked out that I got out when I did, and I don't think it would have gotten any better. I probably would have had to exit anyway because my health wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So, despite despite all of the stresses and downsides of it, do you think, because I mean I know a lot of artists just don't, and myself included, I'm learning a lot, is our business side is just so lacking. Do you feel like despite the downsides that you took a lot from that job that you were able to apply to your practice as an artist and as a business person?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm gonna, being honest, I had a double degree in music and business. So I did have that training in business. That was how I was doing that job. And being in charge of an $8 million budget, it really taught me how to how to prioritize things and what I needed to, keep my eye on and all that. But all that being said, when I started working as a musician after I left, it was like none of that existed at first. It was like totally out the window. And well, now I'm a musician. Now I have my musician hat on and I'm doing something totally different. And I didn't marry the two for a while, which caused me to be stuck, until I finally said, hey, I need to run this music career like a small business. That was when I really started to be able to build something.
Yeah. Did you find you had, I think this is sort of an issue for me and probably for a lot of people, is so emotionally invested in your art and in your craft that it's tough to make the tough business decisions. Did you have that? Do you think that was part of the struggle? And if it was, did you have some way of separating the two to some degree?
Um, I think that was just hard at first because I had never learned to marry the two. And so when I was in creative mode, and I was writing songs and all that stuff, I wasn't able to put on my marketing hat, So it just took me, I think it was just practice. It took me a while to be like, okay, I need to, today I need to spend time on marketing. And then, tomorrow I can work on songwriting. And I think it does help to compartmentalize those things because it is really hard to get creative when all you're thinking about is how am I going to market this song when it's not even totally written yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So, and you clearly you have a spirit, like I wouldn't even necessarily say a spiritual aspect. Your music is almost entirely spiritual. Is that right?
I would say that most of it has a spiritual aspect. Some of it is specifically Christian, uh, but most of it has at least an inspirational, message driven, impact driven kind of feel and intention.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think do you think that is that a struggle for you as well to bring that spirituality and business together? And is there a sort of way that you think about that, I guess?
That's an interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question. That's a great question. I think it was really hard for me starting out on the booking side with that because, here I am booking myself at churches and thinking in the back of my mind, how can I charge them? They're a church, and it took me a while to have the confidence to be like, no, I'm offering them value. They have a budget for this. I'm doing what either another worship leader would be doing that they're having to pay, or a lot of times I did like pulpit supply, so I would do a talk with music that would replace the sermon. And I'm like, oh, well, they'd be paying a pastor to do this. So, but it took me a while because I was I felt very uncomfortable talking about money to a church. And it took me hanging out with a lot of other artists that were doing the same thing, working in churches that had been doing it a little longer than I did and had gotten over this hurdle for them to give me their perspective. And, basically I would just explain to them, this is my full-time career. I feel that God has called me to do this as a career, and therefore I can't do it for free, because if I do it for free, I can't keep doing this as a career and I have to go get a job. So I do need to have money.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that, and I think that, yeah, I was gonna ask how you made that move, but it sounds like just by rubbing shoulders essentially with people who were there, right?
Yeah, it just gave me so much more confidence to hear the way they had kind of gone through that mental shift, and then them giving me like the script that they used, because I was like, oh, okay, that does make sense. I could say it that way and it wouldn't sound so harsh, like, here's my fee. I wanted it to be a little more friendly than that, a little more ministry oriented. And so, my friend giving me that script of the way that she talked about it was really helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. I think that there's so much empathy where it feels like you would place you understand their position, but you're also really helping them understand your position when you sell it the way that you said it to
Yeah,
me.
I totally understand their position because for the past how many years, 8 years or something, I've been the like worship ministry leader at my church, like a volunteer position, but in charge of the budget and all of that stuff. So I know what they're facing, but I also know what they're willing to spend and that they do have a budget. And so that's actually been really helpful for me to be in that position to understand what the other side is like.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Now, did you did you grow up wanting to be an artist before you became a DFO?
Oh, I absolutely did.
Yeah.
I think from when I was like 3. So
Okay.
I always wanted to sing.
Oh wow. Were you performing at church and stuff like that throughout childhood and teenagehood, or
Yes, I did. I was in a lot of church musicals when I was littler. Once I got into high school, I got super involved in the choral program at my high school, which had a lot of different choir opportunities. I was in like 4 different choirs and a women's quartet. I did a whole bunch of solo competitions. And so I got a lot of great experience there. And of course, that made me excited to move forward in college with that.
yeah, yeah. How was the you said did you get 2 degrees?
I did. I got double degree in business,
Yeah.
which has like a management and accounting focus, and then music with a vocal focus.
Yeah. Did you find school helpful? Did you feel like it was worth it at the end of the day?
I feel like on the music side, I feel like they made me an amazing musician, but they
Yeah.
didn't give me any clue how to have a career in music.
Yeah. 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 Is that partially what inspired your Femme Musician Academy?
Ah, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
because it is something I hear all the time. I think it's getting better. I graduated in the 90s, so there wasn't this marriage of music and business back then at all. But there's a lot more now. And I mean, I've been asked to come speak for, UC, um, or actually CSU, California universities for their groups that are for musicians to talk about careers. And, I'm able to speak at a lot of different places that no one ever had those people coming in the past. It was just, you're going to learn your craft and then we're going to send you out the door and you're going to be amazing at your craft, but the rest is up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so why do you choose specifically to cater to women in professional music with this program? Why is that important to you?
Well, it really happened very organically, but I started as a female musician myself. I started connecting with other female musicians, and I was like, they have great music. Why aren't I hearing more of this music, say on the radio or on Sirius XM or even out in the world? And so I decided to create a platform to promote music by women only, which was Women of Substance. I started in 2007. And that allowed me to connect with so many other great artists. People started sending me their music, and I started playing them and promoting and creating all kinds of, themed shows and doing, even we did some live showcases. I think we did about 4 or 5 live showcases, um, like between, I don't know, 2010 and 2015 or something. And it was just so awesome to connect with those women. But I found that they, like myself in the beginning, had no clue how to promote themselves, how to do the business side, how to market themselves. They had great music, but they were looking for somebody else to do all of that. And that wasn't happening because it wasn't the label, this is not the time when the labels are looking for artists very much anymore. It's much more of an independent situation now in the music industry. And so they were still kind of thinking in the old model, oh, I need somebody to, come along and discover me and, you know, just take control of my career. And that wasn't happening. And so their music was just not getting heard. And that made me sad. So that's why I created that platform. And then because of that, I was connected with thousands of wonderful female artists. And that was why I started helping them specifically because I'd also heard a lot of stories from them about being taken advantage of in the industry or being told that they were too old or, not skinny enough or, all the things that women are told that is very unfortunate and hopefully is not happening as much anymore because of the Me Too era, but you never know what happens behind closed doors.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that that there are good mentors out there. That makes me makes me happy to hear that, and I'm glad that you're doing the work that you are doing because I'm I can only imagine, and I'm sure it's very important work to be empowering women in the music business.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like I'm making a difference. That being said, over the years, lots of men have said like, "Hey, is it okay if I follow you, if I'm on your list, if I learn from you, if I listen to your podcast?" And I'm like, "Of course it is."
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
I'm at this point, I've created some other things that aren't just for women, and so I've expanding my brand and creating kind of more of an umbrella brand called the Profitable Musician, which goes along with the Profitable Musician Summit that I did for several years, which is not gender specific at all. So I'm excited to be able to serve more people now while still obviously sticking to helping women, and I'm not abandoning that as a cause at all. I just want to be able to help as many people as possible because I know, musicians want to make money.
yeah, yeah. Did when do you think that the model started to really switch? Like you were saying, the sort of the old thinking and the new thinking. When do you feel like that era sort of changed?
Um, it started in the mid like 2005, 2006, like right around almost when I started Women of Substance and when I started really getting out there as a musician. I put out my first um, studio album in 2006, and that was the era of MySpace, and I was very involved in MySpace and connecting with people there. Yeah. And then it was Facebook, and so all of that, all those tools. And then at the same time, the streaming, first iTunes and iPhones and iPods and all that stuff, and then the streaming with Spotify and Pandora and everything, that all kind of happened during that 2005 to 2010 period. And that's really what caused the labels to pull way back. But it also opened everything up for independence.
Yeah. How much how much of like MySpace strategy is transferable to like Instagram? Like obviously algorithms and whatever, it's totally a different game, but is there still similar concepts that you can take?
Sure. I mean, to me, MySpace was all about reaching out to people and having conversations. I was able to have conversations with people on MySpace that I never thought would talk to me, like musicians that I admired from the past that, they maybe weren't that big anymore, but they were big back then. They were all over MySpace. They were like, this is a way I can reignite my career. And so they would actually respond when you sent them a message.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I love that about social media that you can just reach out to anybody and connect with just so many amazing people. It's
Yeah.
obviously it has its darkness to it as well, but I think if you use it right, it can be so powerful.
Yeah, I think what was great about the MySpace era is no one was jaded. They were like,
Yeah,
wow, this is a cool technology, and I can talk to
yeah,
people across the world and all that. Now it's like, now everyone is like, social media is overwhelming and evil and,
yeah,
negative and all that.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'm I'm a little bit more curious about the Women of Substance radio. So, um, you you talked a little bit about how it started, and I'm just curious how you seek out artists to put on, or do you wait for people to come to you?
So I've always looked at it as, yes, it's my passion, but I also needed it to break even in order for me to be able to do it because there were costs around it. So I always had some kind of opportunity available for artists to submit music, knowing that, my time was valuable and I didn't charge very much, like little bit of money. But in order for me to listen to their music and see if it was a good fit. And so I use things like Sonic Bids and Broad Jam and, some of the ones we still use today, Music X-Ray, all of those. And then we have our own submission system now too. But that was how I started meeting artists because I knew that I was creating something that was valuable. I was At that time, it was kind of the free for all period of the internet where everybody was just putting their music out there and people were starting to understand the value of curation. It was before the era of Spotify playlists. That's the ultimate curation, right? Everybody, they're respected. and people go there to find a playlist that has the perfect mood that they want. And so that was kind of the thinking that I had when I started the radio station, is that I'm a curator. I'm making sure that this stuff is quality, and I'm doing the programming and everything. And so I knew what I had was valuable. And so I just started putting it out there for artists. They jumped on board, and it just really took off. Artists love to share it with other people, and I built an email list that way. We were able to move up to like a more like a professional online station, which means we had commercials. And that's helped support us. And then eventually it turned into a podcast, because that was where I really felt that the things were growing online versus the online radio. That was kind of a cool thing because radio was still cool. But then, around 2014, I was like, this radio is really not growing. But podcasts are growing. And you could actually see the growth because you could see the number of downloads. With the radio, it was just harder to tell if it was really making an impact.
Oh, you didn't have numbers or streams
You
or something like
did,
that?
but I don't know. It's just, I also felt like people were more passive when it came to like online radio. It was just like, oh, I could just listen to this and turn it on, like turning on a radio station. Whereas with a podcast, it just somehow feels more personal. Also, because on the podcast, I would always introduce all the songs. It became more of a radio show style where I would introduce the songs and say a little bit about each artist. And they really appreciated that. I'm a huge fan of like countdowns. Like I grew up listening to Casey Kasem's countdown and all that. And I just love hearing all the trivia and tidbits about the artists. And so that was something I wanted to reproduce. And that's what I started doing when I launched the podcast. And now we're on like, I don't know, episode number 1150 or something like that.
How often do you release them?
Well, when we started, we released 5 a week, and now we release 3 a week.
3 a week. Wow, that's a lot of work. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for
Each
you.
episode has 10 songs.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, good for you. That's pretty incredible to be doing that week in, week out.
Yeah, and we're very, we help the artists really get seen. So we are very big on, we promote it everywhere on social, promote it on our Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever we can promote it, we're promoting it. And then, of course, we encourage every artist that's on there to promote it. So it's, it's not necessarily viral, but it has a big spider web.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that I love just the service that you provide for artists. I think is so important. And I love the themes that you have as well. I was going through them, and really poignant and powerful, and yeah. Do you have a way that you go about choosing it? Is just sort of what's going on socially,
So
or
what you're looking at is actually a big series that we do every year. It's called Music with a Conscience.
oh,
And
okay.
it ends up being about 10 weeks. I think this year was 9 or 10 weeks long because we got so much great music. And we just, we're doing socially conscious music. And we take submissions and then we organize them based upon themes. So we had everything this year from environmental to Black Lives Matter to gun violence. And, I think today's episode is like abuse and rape, which is like a really hard one to listen to, but it's so important. Me too, like women's empowerment, so that's a really great series, and it has become really like one of the most popular things that we do. We also do 3 other series per year that have really caught on, which is our Love Songs for Valentine's Day series, our Mothers Celebrating Motherhood Mother's Day series, and then our holiday series, of course, which is coming up.
Cool. Wow, That's there's so many things out there, and that's a lot of work. So just
Thank God I have a team now. I used to do it all
yeah.
myself. So yeah.
Wow.
I think I got my first real team member in 2016. So I was pretty much doing
Okay.
it all myself since 2007.
Wow. Wow. Um, I think we've pretty much covered most of the topics that I was thinking about discussing, and I just sort of wanted to ask you one last question, which I ask all the guests: is what impact do you hope that you'll leave in the world with your creations?
I think for me, if my creations allow musicians to get their music out there that wouldn't have done it otherwise, I think that's important because number one, it's helping them fulfill their purpose for their life, but it's also music that's able to impact so many more people that might not have been heard had they not gotten the tools and the knowledge and the support in order to go out there and promote themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Whew, yeah,
And I think as musicians, we can feel like such an island, especially if we're not getting that support. We don't have a lot of friends who are musicians locally. We don't, our family thinks we're crazy. Like, why are you so obsessed with this? And yet we feel like we can't do anything other than that. And so building a community, that's been a big thing for me is, I have a community of over 4,000 women on Facebook in our free group, the female indie musician community. And just having that place where people can go and ask a question and know that they're going to be understood and not, made to feel like this music thing is a pipe dream.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so important. I mean, I know I've been in that situation before, and I felt that way before, and yeah, that's a great mission, and thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
I'll add some links for the Facebook group and stuff like that in the show notes.
Great.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Is there anything you have coming up that you'd like to talk about, or or if you want to let people know where they can follow you at?
Yeah, I mean, I think one big thing that I've done this year that I've really loved is I've released a program to help people with their upcoming release, as far as whether they're releasing an album or an EP. A lot of times, what I've seen is, and I think this has resonated with a lot of people when I talk about how, maybe you've released a CD in your career and you put it out there thinking that the act of putting it out there was enough. And then you didn't know how to promote it, you didn't plan anything in advance, and so now you just have all these boxes of CDs in your garage. And and that really resonated with people, but now we're a little more in the digital age, and so maybe
Yeah.
people don't have boxes of CDs, but they have big bills from their studio of something that they've created, and it didn't go the way that they wanted. They felt like they missed out on so many opportunities for that music to really get heard by more people. And so that's why I created the Rock Your Next Release framework to help artists understand that you can't just release it and hope. You have to have a plan behind it, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you do way before you ever release the album. So if people are wanting help with that, I've got a free class that will help them learn how to confidently plan and execute their next release without feeling overwhelmed or regretting missed opportunities. And that is over at rockyournextrelease.com.
Awesome. That is, I've been in that position, so
Haven't we all? I have the boxes of CDs in the garage too. So
I'll have to, I might have to check that out myself. And yeah, for the listeners, I will put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I really enjoyed the chat. And I think what you're doing is really, really beautiful and really powerful, and your music is really great as well. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Bree.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Hey, yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Some of the really interesting and important things to note from my perspective is when I asked her about connecting the money and the spiritual and artistry as well, I think for a lot of people that's something that they struggle with. And we as artists have to make sure that we don't sell ourselves short and realize that our crafts are bringing something of value to the table. So remember that when you go into business meetings, when you are pitching yourself, remember that you're bringing something of value and have a price ready. Also, she briefly touched on people who have this concept that all you have to do is make the album and put it out. And I've been in this situation before, and I've made this mistake where you work really hard on something and you think it's great, and you just put it out there and you hope for the best, and for the most part that really doesn't work very well. So I think it's a really good idea to educate yourself in that direction, because it's something that we overlook. Again, there's tons of resources online, tons of educators online that will really teach you how to release music with a sense of direction, and I think that's what a lot of people are missing. So I think that's something that all artists can be doing a better job of, or 95% of artists can be doing a better job of, is just really learning the business side and almost thinking more like an entrepreneur when it comes to marketing and the sales aspects, as opposed to strictly just an artist. So I hope that all makes sense, and I hope you enjoyed the interview. If you're looking for more stuff, I got my YouTube channel that I'm putting out videos every week, so come check that out and say what's up, and follow me on Instagram at MuseWorksAudio. And I'm going to be posting every day and just trying to inspire and uplift and motivate artists out there. So yeah, please join in on the journey, and thanks for listening. Take care.